Sure. Hey guys, happy to be back to teach you a fun class today. Today we're going to talk about a little bit unusual type of chess where I am playing with all of my army, all of my pieces, and my esteemed opponent, which is Komodo chess engine, Komodo Dragon, which I believe is rated number 2 in the world after Stockfish, is giving me knight odds in a match. So I want to share with you the experience from the match, what we can learn from this, and how we can play against such powerful beasts. So as always, I'm going to be asking you questions throughout each game, so pay attention and post your answers in the chat. All right, again, welcome everyone. So let's get started. Before we even start looking at each game, who wants to guess the how I did in the match, for example? So there was a 6-game match on chess.com, which my friend Larry Kaufman hosted. I was actually streaming a little bit during the match, talking through my moves. And there was a 6 games, and each game I was black, and my esteemed opponent was switching between the G1 and the B1 knight odds. All right, so let's see what people are saying in the chat. So who wants to guess who won the match, first of all? Again, remember that the engine is easily going to beat me with full pieces, right? But because I've got an extra piece, this match is actually kind of interesting. Oh yeah, you know the title, right? I did win. It says crushing Komodo with knight odds. Yeah, so that was a big giveaway right there. So not much guessing. All right, who wants to guess the score out of 6 games? What was the final score? In case you don't know. 6-0. Wow. Ryan is giving me a lot of prep. 5-1, 5.5. Okay, yeah, you guys are giving me way too much credit. 3.5, 2.5. That's a close match. I wouldn't call that crushing the engine. Well, long story short, it was actually 4-2. Okay, but I was winning the match basically 4-1 going in the last round. So I actually lost my only game. That was the last 6 game, which didn't really matter. I already won the match. And I want to share with you what are the key takeaways from this match. And we'll talk about some key chess positions as well. Hopefully it's going to be instructive. So let's start game number 1. I am black. My opponent is playing without the B1 knight. Again, remember, this is knight odds. Okay. So talking to Larry Kaufman about prior to the match, he thought that the chances are a little bit even, okay, because the engines have grown, guys. Engines are getting better and better, right, over the past few years, especially after Alpha Zero. Whereas human strength not really improved, especially my strength, right? I'm probably around 2,500, and I don't think I am, Firouzja level or 2,700. So basically, he thinks that an engine of this caliber against a 2,500 GM, there should be about 50-50. And on a good day, I can win. On a good day, the engine can win. So that's the sort of theory of why he organizes these odds matches. Now, this is not the first piece knight odds that is matched that Komodo played. He played against a French grandmaster, Wirig, W-I-R-I-G, I think. And the French GM also won in a very close match. So it was interesting to have this kind of experiment. Now, I am black in every game, okay? And the computer rotates between the G1 and the B1 knight. And of course, computer can play literally any first move. So my preparation basically involved what? Just making sure I don't blunder, right? So I get 15 minutes plus 10 seconds. Very nice. Knight f3. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about my approach to the match. Okay, when you're playing such a beast, such an engine, and you're a piece up, what should be the number 1 priority? Who wants to answer that in the chat? What kind of positions are you looking for? And what sort of general trend you want to play? There is something specific about playing engines. All right, very good. Yeah. Roger says play a solid line that is hard to break through. So being solid is key, okay? As you guys are pointing out in the chat. So that's exactly my approach to the match. I don't want to enter any complications that I would be happily entering against humans up a piece, but against engine who can out-calculate me, I don't know, maybe 1,000 to 1 or maybe more, maybe 1 million to 1. The engine just calculates super fast. So there is absolutely no chance in any kind of calculation game. So I have to be solid. Okay. And that's sort of the first approach that I'm going to choose. And the second thing, guys, is I welcome piece trades. Okay. So the more trades, the better it is for me. Of course, less pieces to blunder, and especially the queen trades. I love endgames. All right. So let's see. So I play d5. So I play d5. I mean, that's as solid as it gets, although I can still choose various setups later. e3. So my opponent is not entering any sort of direct battle, which gives me time. Knight f6, as flexible as it gets, right? I can still play e6 or c6. And b3. All right, so here comes the first decision. I could go for the super solid Queen's Gambit decline setups. The problem is the bishop gets a little bit weakened on c8. I don't really want that bishop to get locked up. I decided to play g6. Again, in the spirit that trades are good for me. By the way, another essential thing when you play against the engines, you don't want to give the engine too much pawns in the center. Engines play really well. Unfortunately, in a couple of games, it sort of backfired against me. I'll show you later. But here, c6 is the key move. I want to maintain my center pawns, basically. I don't want to trade them off. So bishop b2, bishop g7. By the way, engine is, this engine specifically is playing just instantaneously. It's not thinking more than, between 1 and 5 seconds per move. So bishop e2. You can actually see timestamps after every move. I castled. So we're still in our quote unquote prep. Obviously, without the knight on b1, it's not a real opening, but it is more or less reminding you of what? Maybe like Schlechter Slav type of setup, where I want to get this bishop outside the pawn chain. And so that's what I played, bishop g4. Okay, so we get a normal middle game. First question, guys. Do I want to trade the bishop for the knight? Simple question, but let's see if you can answer that. Remember my general strategy for the match? Yes. Just trade everything. Okay, so most people are kind of on the same wavelength. You want to trade. Now, what about the argument that, well, you just gave your opponent a bishop pair? Hey, that's a concession, my friend. What about that argument? Who is going to debate that with me? What about the bishop pair I just gave white? Anyone? Anyone who thinks like that? Why did I do that? The light bishop is bad for white. Okay, I agree. It is kind of bad, but still it's a bishop pair. Right? So you can't argue with that. The key, guys, to answering that question is to realize how dangerous is the bishop pair in a closed position. Remember, the center is still closed, and the key is most likely the g7 and the b2 bishops will get traded off. It's very unlikely that the bishop pair is going to be sufficient advantage, right? Because one of the bishops is totally neutralized by the g7 bishop, and this guy is being neutralized by this beautiful pawn chain. Yes, that plan is correct. Evan says, I want to close the position. So I now play knight d7 with a very simple idea. Win the center. d3. Why did the engine not play d4? My thinking is it didn't want to lock that bishop up. That's the kind of position I want to get. And the rest, the knights do all the work, right, guys? I'm going to play maybe knight e4 at some point, maybe e6, maybe play for b5, a5 expansion, keep the game closed, and eventually take advantage of the extra piece. All right, so this part is easy, so let me just speed up. I'm going to win the center, bishop e2, a5, same strategy. If your opponent gives you space, take more space. Queen c2, rook e8 over protection of the center pawn, right? So far, so good. Rook a d1. And now I really don't like this x-ray. who knows, in some weird tactical way, my queen may get attacked. So I get the queen out of danger with queen b6, d4, and here comes the first critical moment of the game. All right, and my question to everyone is, how would you play here as black? Aditya, good job. Okay, so I see some answers coming in already. Oh, now you're giving me... you're giving me a couple of moves. Okay, yeah, that's okay. Anybody else in the chat? I would open up the rook, double up, and improve your pieces. So open up the rook, meaning you would take e takes d. Okay, a couple of people saying close the position with e4. Yeah, good job. So I agree, guys. I unfortunately did not play e4, but after thinking about it for a little bit longer, I actually prefer e4 now. Much simpler to play. You don't allow any counterplay. f3 is really, really hard to get with this g3 hole and this e3 pawn. This guy's just dead. Okay, it's not easy to win as black. I still need to do some work. But where would you play in this position? On the king side? Or would you try to do something here on the queen side as black? What would you do here? What is black's plan? Okay, let's see what people are saying. Yeah, I see some good answers already. Let's give you some more time. So queen side or king side? That's my question. You have to demonstrate some kind. Let's say white just does nothing. He goes king h1, king g1, and kind of waits. Yeah, and the simple guys kind of metric how you decide which side to play on is you make a little arrow starting from the base of the pawn chain. Okay. Yep. Exactly. Roger is already saying king side because the pawns point toward the king. The arrow points toward the king. That's where your space advantage is greatest. And it is absolutely correct to play here on the king side. The question is how? How do you play on the king side? The typical break, right? If we know that this is the base, the e3 pawn, the base is the blocked pawn, right? That's the base. f5, f4 is a typical break. Not that easy to achieve. I'm going to propose to you maybe a second plan that I can borrow from an opening called King's Indian Attack. This plan involves h5, h4, knight f8, e6 or h7, and then knight to g5. Now you can start really eyeing that king with g1, and maybe the bishop can swing to f8. You got to get the queen out of there. Maybe queen goes back to d8, bishop d6. And because you have all the time in the world, you can basically set up this very neat bishop b8, queen d6 battery. And he is pretty much dead. So yeah, it is a long-term plan. It's not that easy to achieve. Of course, the engine is going to put up a fight, but I don't really see much counterplay. f3 is really the only counterplay move I can see. Yeah, in hindsight, I should have played e4. But I was really excited about this idea that I'll share with you. I calculated this line, e takes d. I knew that the engine will probably not be interested in opening the e file, locking the bishop. It played bishop takes, and here was my point, c5. You may wonder, wait a second. Why am I giving up a pawn? He can take on f6 and on d5. So who can answer this question? By the way, the engine did not take the pawn, but it is, material. I'm giving some material back. Okay, let's see. Simplification. Bishop f6, knight f6. Yeah, good job, guys. So the point is, after this, I have two good moves. I can simply activate the rook, or as I planned during the game, knight e4. So this is called domination, because you got that beautiful outpost that's protected by the bishop. That knight is just a monstrosity on c3, and not that easy for white to play this one. So that was kind of my idea. My second idea was more of a blockading pattern, like maybe I can swing the knight back and just start pushing my extra pawns. Very easy to play. The d5 pawn is totally irrelevant. So, okay, this engine is not bad. It's not going to win the material just because it can. It simply played bishop a1, putting the ball sort of back in black's court. Like, what do you do now, my friend? He says. I actually simply decided to trade. he took with a pawn. And now my queen on b6 feels a little bit misplaced, just a little bit misplaced. So I decided to play knight e5 first, just to get my queen maybe to e6 at some point. Yeah, I'm not worried about f4, right? That's great weakness. The knight can swing to c6. So rook f e1. The engine is sort of playing a waiting game here. Here comes my queen, rook b1, and now I simply played b6 again. I sort of welcome this trade because of knight e4, knight c3 plan. Same idea as before as I wrote. So, okay, all fine. Engine goes here. I activate the rook. And now maybe I was so happy to give up that pawn after bishop takes e5. I didn't even care about the b6 pawn. In hindsight, it is not that easy to win, although I'm still winning, of course. I could have just simply retreated. I don't know why I didn't do that. Instead, I played rook d6. Yes, I did play this a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So bishop takes e5, queen takes. So simplification as I welcome. And of course, I've got my knight to e4. But it's not super easy to win, as you're going to see what's going to happen. Let me just fast forward a bit. So we get this position. Engine got a little activity. I just said, okay, I want to simplify. I want to trade. G3, of course, I'm going to trade. Check. Of course, he's going to win the rook back, right? Bishop f8. Queen takes, takes, takes. All right. Finally, we've simplified. I've got an extra piece for a pawn. 0 losing chances. Great. I love it. But it's not that easy to win. There is still some fight left. So I want to trade queens. That's my first objective. So I play knight e4, get my knight back in the game. Knight just defends my king very nicely. Engine just sort of waits. I was really surprised the engine trades queens. I mean, Larry Kaufman said the engine is specifically designed to put as much pressure on humans as possible. So there are some customized settings. But in my opinion, that would be avoiding the queen trades, right? The more pieces, especially the queens, the more likely black to blunder. But in hindsight, the reason why the engine did that is because it probably knows that with the queens, black is winning even more. So it can't break its eval, right? The eval says probably with the queens on the board, it's like, I don't know, minus, let's say -5, -6. Without the queens, maybe -4. So I think that's kind of the premise, because with the queens and the opposite color bishops and the knight, I can't go for some kind of a checkmate in attack. Maybe like play for h5, h4, get the queen here, some battery. Anyways, engine is now trying to make a draw. My question is, can black win this endgame? And if so, how? Now, during the game, I did not see a clear path. I probably had like, I don't know, less than 5 minutes here. And maybe you guys can see winning plan right away by looking at this position, because during the game, I knew that this is winning, but I just didn't see a clear plan. Okay, so how do you win this? So I see some yes. Anybody? Any plan? Any ideas? I did not see a clear path to victory. Expand on the king side with h5. I was debating h5. Maybe this is the right approach. I guess I was a little bit worried about h4. And then it's hard to play for g5 and expand. Roger proposed an interesting plan. Run the king to b4. And then maybe knight e4. Yeah, that's an interesting plan. I was a little bit skeptical if I can reach b4 that easily. Capture the c pawn. Yeah, easier said than done. So my first instinct was just to improve my king. So I play king f7. Let me just fast forward a little bit. So he's kind of creating this wall of pawns. I activated the bishop, of course, on the long diagonal. Now I decided, okay, this knight is sort of useless. I'm going to put it on a more useful square. By the way, it's a risk-free, fun game, right? When you know that you can't lose. Bishop d5. And now is the hard question. With no time left, I was not so certain that I can just make a run for it. I knew that was one of my ideas. Maybe h5, maybe h6, g5. I wasn't sure how to do this, so I decided to simply play king f6, waiting move, buying myself some time, trying to decide, build up some increment, knowing that full well I'm playing against the best, one of the best engines in the world. f4. And again, let me just fast forward a little bit because there's a lot of back and forth. Eventually, the engine ends up playing e4. So the more pawns trades, the weaker side it favors. And I'm kind of realizing that, oh boy, this is not super easy to win, right? I'm still probably winning, but it's not that easy. I played h5. Maybe I should have played h6, g5 instead. It's hard to say. It's hard to say which is the simpler win. This position objectively is still winning, I have to tell you that, but it's extremely difficult. So there is some more maneuvering here. Engine sort of creates this fortress, right, with this weak g-pawn. I have to watch out for the f5 break and some bishop transfer to this diagonal. And now I came to a standstill. I have no time. I don't know how to win. So we just now shuffle a little bit. I'm trying something with my knight. Engine puts pressure on the g-pawn. Again, I don't have time to calculate how winning this position is. Just no time at all. So I'm just shuffling. We're both shuffling. And eventually, the game ends in a draw. So I'm going to show you how it ends. Threefold repetition. Game drawn by repetition. So going back here, this was a critical moment around here. Let me just go back here. I could have taken the pawn. I've analyzed this out to win for black with super accurate moves. And I can just push the c-pawn. But during the game, that wasn't obvious to me. I mean, two connected passers. I mean, I doubt I'm going to lose this, but still, this is what I should have done. And just push the c-pawn. Yeah, takes, and that's it. Eventually, I'm going to round up the pawns. Yes, I do have to know how to checkmate with knight and bishop. That did occur to me during the game that I may be tested. But luckily, I knew the pattern. It's called the W pattern. I hope everybody knows what I'm talking about. Once you know the W pattern with the knight, the rest is easy. So just a quick review, how to checkmate. Imagine white's king is here, black's king is here, knight on c7, bishop on a7. You drive the king to the dark square. You create the W pattern with the knight, and then you eventually checkmate. All right, so that was the first game I drew. I don't know what conclusions we can draw from the first game. I mean, it was a battle. It wasn't that easy, but I was never really losing, so that was good. So let's go to game number 2. Now, we don't have time to go in detail over every single game. There are 6 games total. So I'm just going to focus on the most interesting games. This is probably one of the toughest games for me in the match, game number 2, that I managed to win. Meaning that I was under some pressure right after the opening. I did not like my position after the opening. I'll have to tell you that. So this game, computer's playing without the other knight, without the G knight. And now the engine plays E4. Now, surprisingly, E4 is the move I had the most difficulty against in the match. And I don't know why. Maybe the position gets too open. Maybe I should not have played E5, but I decided to keep things simple. You know, E4, E5 is solid, right? Bishop C4, the bishop's opening. Well, it is open games, Roger, but the problem is, yeah, the game is open, but I don't want to enter an open battle. I want the game closed. It's hard to keep the game closed after E4, though. So I played knight F6, D3, and now I decided, you know what? I'm just going to give this check, knowing full well engine will not trade pieces. I'm happy to see bishop D2, and I'm happy to see knight C3. Okay, so C3 is what I anticipated, and now I play quiet move bishop E7. So the question to everyone is, why did I insert this check if I could have immediately played right here bishop E7? Okay, so quick question. Why did I insert this check and then bishop E7? What's the difference? D3 is weaker. Aha. Yeah, and the D3 is a little bit weaker, but the most important thing is correct, Alex. Yeah, the knight cannot go to c3. It's easier for me to execute my plan and eventually get to the d pawn. Yep, good job. So there's no knight c3. Whereas if I were to start with bishop e7 now, knight c3, it's not that easy to achieve. Okay, I can still play c6. I can still achieve my d5, but it's not that easy. For example, I don't know, queen f3 or something. Still, some work needs to be done, right, for black. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to assert that check, go back. And now I was hoping I'm just going to play castles. And I may castle or I may play d5. I don't know. Both moves look pretty good to me. d5, I like. Austin says, my coach told me when you're up material, play like you aren't. But I guess that doesn't apply when your opponent's 3,400. Play like you aren't. Let me think about this. When you're up material, play like you aren't. Not sure what he means by that. You mean, I think what he meant by that is like, don't relax. You know, you're up material, so automatically you feel like you relax and you're like, oh, I'm just going to win this game by playing some easy moves. I think maybe that's what your coach meant. Like, you got to play at the same 100% capacity. Yeah, like basically don't automatically go into your shell and play it safe. Yeah. So I think I agree with that statement. But at the same time, when you play against the engine, you do welcome trades, right? Because again, tactically, I am in not even in the same zone as this engine, right? So basically, that's my plan. But guess what? Komodo has other plans. Oh my God, f4? I am already getting attacked. So this is a tough one for me. I don't really want to take on f4. How would you play as black? My question to everyone. Okay, guys, so focus on this position now. Question, how would you play as black? Some difficult decisions. All right, so yeah, some interesting decisions. Yeah, I actually agree. A lot of you guys are saying d5 counterattack. That's exactly what I played. So good job. You're thinking the same way. I did not like this passive setup with d6, castles, f5. Obviously, black is still winning with best play, yada, yada, yada. But in a real game against the engine, I see this pawn chain. I see King's Indian, pawn storms. I am scared. Obviously, my main idea is to break with d5. I'm still okay. But that's not the type of game I wanted. I wanted to not get pawn stormed. So I play d5. So my opponent takes, I take, takes, and I expected queen a4 check. Guess what? I'm sacking the pawn yet again. Notice that I was actually quite happy to see the check. Because after knight c6, queen takes, I can either castle or I can play knight e5 with beautiful position. I mean, look at only one piece is out and white is down an entire piece. So this is just crushing. Well, the problem, though, is I sort of underestimated the next move. d4. And I'm like, oh, no. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Strong center with those massive pawns. And now I realize this game is going to be a nightmare for me. I did not feel optimistic now. It doesn't look that bad. But I don't know. I don't want to allow these pawns. I think this is a bad opening outcome. Well, that's all right, guys. Sometimes the opening doesn't go your way. That means you just have to adjust to the circumstances and just play chess. So I castled. I decided, all right, I'm going to slow down this pawn advance. This pawn advance, I don't mind. I'm going to draw back. Well, I didn't want to put the bishop on b7 because I really want to put the pawn on c6, b5. Create this kind of powerful pawn forward. C5, if why not castle? That's a good question. I don't know why I didn't do this. I guess I was a little bit afraid of some pawn storm. This looks a little scary. Maybe I'm fine, but I don't know. E5, then what? E5, then bishop takes. Oh, wait, so you're giving up a piece? Bishop G5, you mean? Okay, and now you play what, D5? No, we're just talking on the chat for now. D5, you take, Yeah, that may be better what I did in the game. I agree. C5 looks kind of promising. Yeah, you can also try this idea, but I don't know if it's that good. Takes, check. Of course, he's not gonna. Well, actually, King could do this. At first, I was thinking he can't do that, but can he? Maybe he can get away with this kind of stuff. Bishop G4. Yeah, I agree. Bishop G4 looks pretty bad. I'm not sure if it's game over bad, but it does look pretty bad, yeah. So the key, guys, you see is that the queen has to protect H1. Not that easy. You got to play some moves like what? Queen E1, ugly moves. Check. No, knight D2 maybe. Yeah, maybe knight D2, because if check, then you can block. Yeah, maybe knight D2, you can get away with it. But I mean, I don't want to enter any of this against the engine. Maybe against a human player, yes. So I decided just to keep it safe. Castle C6. So we're going to reach this position shortly. Engine is quite happy. I'm happy I didn't lose the game immediately. Knight C2, knight B6 are solid. Again, I'm never afraid of any of these pawn pushes now, right? But it's not that easy to destroy white center. Knight E3. Now I decided to trade. Again, trades are good for me. Queen H5. And here I realized, wait a second. If I trade willingly, rook takes, I'm kind of a little scared of various attacking ideas. I mean, my pieces over here are not where they want to be. This could turn out a disaster if this happens. I mean, I don't have enough defenders around my king. So I think I played a good move here. I played H6. If he wants to trade, do it on my own terms. I'm going to take with the queen and offer the queen trade. That is what I want. Okay, guys, that is what I want. So rook A to E1. And now probably the most difficult decision of the entire game right now. What is Black's winning plan? So I was lucky to be familiar with this plan from other openings, but maybe you can figure it out. It's not an easy one. Keep in mind, white does not have any direct threats. White is going to slow play this, but we need to consolidate our pieces. Yes, I did debate about bishop takes, rook takes, queen G5, but after queen F3, H4 is coming, and I did not really like that position. I did not want to take on F4. I want engine to take on G5. Any other ideas, guys? C5 is super risky, guys. There's D5 ideas coming. B4 was logical. I was thinking about B4 plan, maybe A5, B4, or B4 right away, but I didn't really see how to make it work. He can just ignore it. He's not going to take, of course. Yeah, we already talked about take on F4, queen G5, queen F3, and H4. I don't like that either. So, okay, nobody has got this idea yet. Nobody has got this idea. Let's see. Give you one more minute here. Oh, queen F6. You don't want to put a queen in front of the rook. Looks a little scary. It's a very simple plan. It's a risk-free plan, but I really like it. Let's see if you guys can figure out. Okay, G6, you're getting close. G6 is my general idea to kick the queen, and then maybe I can take in queen G5, but I felt like I'm not quite ready yet. Specifically, here's a hint. This rook is not in the game. All my other pieces are more or less well placed, but this rook is sort of useless. Ah, I gave it away. Ryan, good job. Okay, so I see people are kind of getting, not rook b8. Okay, make sure you don't play rook b8, guys. Although you probably are not losing after rook b8. Nor rook c8. No, rook c8 I did not like either because it's not really coming anywhere, right? Yes. All right, I think everyone is getting now. a5, not necessarily to play b4, which I could play, by the way, but this is the real plan. Get that rook in the game so that later I can play g6 and then activate all my pieces. I was really happy to have come up with this plan. All right, so queen d1 was played by the engine. I'm like, what? Okay, no big deal. I want to play rook a7, queen back to h5. That's a good sign when your opponent just kind of goes back and forth. But the engine is being smart. Engine knows that any kind of provocation from white may end up bad for him, so he kind of keeps the position nice and tight. Rook d7. Okay, so I've achieved the first stage of my plan. a3. Not that I was going to play b4, but okay, it's nice to see a3 weakening the b2 pawn, giving me the b3 square. Rook e8. I'm not in a hurry. Notice the bishop does a good job defending f7, thanks to the rook as well. The rook does two defensive functions. All right, and finally, g6. I am taking over the game. Queen trade. White does not want to trade. And here I said, what is your autopilot reaction here as black? The next move, or rather the next two moves to me is autopilot, prophylactic thinking kind of thought process. Roger is thinking more about offense. He's proposing b4. I did not think about b4 yet. I want to basically stop this h4 idea or this knight getting to g4 in the future. Yes, h5 is what I played. Simple chess, right? You restrict this knight. The bishop does a good job. The pawns do a good job. The main idea is I want to secure the queen with h4. And that's pretty much finally, like at move 24, I can breathe and say, all right, I'm not getting mate in this game. It's very difficult for him to open up the position. If he plays for g3, it's going to weaken the h pawn, right? So I played, well, the engine plays queen f4. I'm like, what? I'm always happy to trade queens. That's not a good sign. And basically, guys, the rest is more or less easy, right? End game. I love end games. Knight a4, reminding that he has weakness. I could have taken on g4, honestly. I decided my bishop is really strong. I don't need to. h3 pawn is weak anyways. My plan is just to rotate the rook over to h8. Here's what I'm doing. f6, strengthening my g pawn. Knight b6. This is another tough moment. Black has probably many ideas, not many ideas, but I like to bring the knight back to f4. I kind of like this plan. Simple. If I have all the time in the world, I'll win. So the engine eventually realizes that's bad news. It plays e5, but that's a huge concession, So I play king f7 first, knight takes, and now, of course, I'm happy to trade, and eventually I won. I'm just going to speed up a little bit here to show you the kind of domination I got in the game. I mean, it's easy win, but look at this. Simply perfect position to have. Engine has no moves for the knight. I got a nice passed pawn, and eventually I converted and won. So that was a nice start. First draw. Second game, I was actually under a lot of pressure, but I managed to wiggle my way out of it. But the third game is my favorite game, after which Larry Kaufman had to change settings on the engine. So let's jump into the third game, and I want to share with you this one. All right, so so if it's going to be surprising, don't be surprised by some moves that you see from the engine. Here's the third game. f4, okay? I'm already happy when I see the move f4. Why is that? Well, because these types of positions, when white surrenders the center, is not that good, generally speaking, even with all the pieces on the board. But here I specifically like the position I got. I'll show you. D5, G6. This is the key plan. By the way, notice what I'm doing. I'm playing the reversed opening, right? My opponent, think about D4, F5. That's the Dutch, right? So the Leningrad Dutch is when they play knight F5, knight F6, G6. My opponent is sort of doing the same thing, reverse color. And now I'm just basically taking over the diagonal, taking over the center. And I know I'm not going to get checkmated, guys, with an extra piece. It's still far away from any serious attacks. So D3, knight F6. So far, so good. A4. I already gave this move question mark. It's not yet as bad as you're going to see what's going to happen next. I castled. All right, and now check this out, guys. A5? What on earth is this engine doing? The engine lost its marbles. I was pretty shocked when I saw this move during the game, I have to be honest. And I simply took the free pawn. I was not sure if this was a blunder or if this was some kind of a Tal-like genius sacrifice that he saw in some weird way that my knight is misplaced. Turned out to be it was just a random move. So one of the things that Larry explained to me is that the engine sees, because it calculates so deep, it sees that it's lost in every line. And when it sees that, 5 moves are pretty much losing, the eval is the same. For the engine, it doesn't matter if A5 is also losing move. To us humans, it looks like this is just a horrible blunder. But to the engine, even moves like King H1, the eval is the same, right? So that's one of the, I don't know what kind of setting he had to do to fix that, but it was pretty funny when the engine plays like this. So the normal moves, of course, C3. I said, which opening is this? What is Black's plan? Well, you already know the answer to the opening. It's a reversed Leningrad Dutch. Now, the funny part about the Leningrad Dutch, I'm not sure how much you know your history. There is no such city called Leningrad right now in the world. But the openings still remain because the Leningrad was originally called St. Petersburg. Now it's actually changed back to St. Petersburg. But when it was Leningrad, that's when the opening was invented. And then, oops, yeah, the opening is not now called St. Petersburg. It's still called Leningrad, which is kind of funny. Yeah, people are too lazy to change it. So the opening is called the Leningrad Dutch. Okay, reverse color. I keep repeating that. It's reverse color, Leningrad Dutch, of course. The plan for white is to try to play queen e1, e4. The plan for black is what? I'll wait to see some answers in the chat. Anyone? All right, let's not debate politics here. Let's focus on the task at hand. What is Black's plan? Anybody? So we know what White's plan. What is Black's plan? You may not know this. I don't see any answers yet. May not be so obvious. Well, I'll tell you what Black's plan. Black's plan is to play for e5. Bishop g4, maybe. I don't like that move as much. Queen c7 is typically how you play it. And then you play for e5. Knight d7 and e5, maybe, but that looks a little artificial. If you can play queen c7 and e5, that's good enough. Well, I don't want to bore you to death with this game because what's going to happen is computer is just getting a royal thrashing here. Computer is just totally playing bad chess. I would say no more than 1800. I'm just executing all my ideas. Trades, yes, please. I want to trade. Notice I'm even happy to give up pawn. And this is just total domination, right? I won the a pawn. I'm just going to speed up a little bit here to give you this beautiful position to enjoy. And the rest doesn't need any much commentary. This is just easy win. All right. All right, so now I want to jump to the last round game. So there was one win and one draw in the process. That's not that interesting games. So I'm gonna move into, let's see, which game is this? This is game number 5. So let's go to this game. All right, game number 6. All right, so by this time, Larry fixed whatever settings he had to fix. Game number 6 is a real battle. I did lose the game. Yeah, I did lose this game, but I still won the match, though, remember. But this is another headache for me, this e4 move. Now, let's see how the computer beat me in this game. Very important game, by the way, for learning, about these odds matches. So I played, again, e5, keep it simple. Knight c3, knight f6, d4. Whoa, okay, I take here and here. By the way, what's the name of this opening when they play this early d4 after e4, e5, d4 takes, queen takes, and then queen back to e3? Aha, good job. Some people already know. I see the answers. And my follow-up is the trivia question. Oh, somebody already answered it. Name a top 10 player who plays this in Rapid and Blitz? Roger says somebody played against you. Hikaru? Hikaru plays that? No. Yep, correct. Nipo. Good job. Nipo plays this. Nipomniachtchi. He is about to play our world champion Magnus Carlsen. I doubt he's going to play it in the match, but he has been playing this kind of like his childhood opening. So this is very interesting. Engine picks up idea from Nipo. Of course, the point is to castle and start the pawn storm. I'm exactly afraid of this, guys. I don't want to enter this, but I have to. I have no choice. Not a good position versus engine. Obviously, black is winning. Black is much better, but I don't want to be in this pawn storm situation. How did I lose this? Good question. Good question. Rook e8. I'm still playing good chess. D6 is logical. Here comes the first practical question, though, guys. How would you take, with the f pawn or with the rook? Well, I mean, for all intensive purposes, Komodo and Stockfish are the same. Specifically, Larry said Komodo is really good at these odd matches. So I don't know. Somebody says rook. Some people say pawn. So it looks like there is no clear. During the game, I was really debating. I think I made the wrong decision. I took with the rook. It looked like the simplest, but now that I think about it, I think this is much better from a practical point of view. It's not that easy to get checkmated when you have pawns like this. And of course, I can always block with e5 later. Hard to make psychologically. Move like that, block your own rook. But this is not a bad move. Okay, that's okay. I still played a move that is winning, right? All my moves are still giving me the winning position. Knight d7, they reroute knight to c5, queen c4, bishop takes. Now, the reason why I took the knight is I didn't want to get bogged down on some tactic with bishop here, knight d5. Okay, because f6 is going to be really hard to play. So I simply took, played queen e8, get out again of any danger on the potentially open d file. b3. What would you play as black? I mean, there is pretty much no turning back at this moment, guys. No turning back. It is opposite castle situation. You have to do what? Yeah, that's right. B5, A5. You guys are thinking correctly. Attack, attack, attack. Yes. You got to storm the barricades, right? So I played A6, which I think is still a good move. It's okay, but A5 is much stronger. You just got to go all out. Go all out. I mean, it's a last round. I'm already winning the match. Why didn't play A5? I don't know. A6 is good enough. I played B5. F6 just to stop any pressure. Black is still absolutely winning, of course. But now we enter this kind of annoying territory where after A5, computer plays queen E3. And I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, is A4 really going to result in checkmate? I don't know. So I'm just going to play it solid. I'm going to play knight E5, which I think is a good move. G4. Uh-oh. Here comes the pawn storm. This is scary stuff, guys. I don't know what to do, so I played B4 with a heavy heart. I'm like, all right, go ahead and checkmate me. Now, for some reason, he does not play G5, probably because of Queen H5, I'm guessing. And now I can take on F3. Remember, trades are good for me, right? So this is maybe the idea. I don't know. Maybe Engine was afraid. So Engine plays Rook HG1. Yeah, I don't think I made any obvious chess mistakes. I think it's just practically it's difficult to play this position against an Engine. I mean, I'm still like, -5 or whatever, -4. Queen F7, Queen A2. If G5 here, I was a little bit worried about it. Maybe I can play F5. I was considering F5. Keeping things locked. Okay, Queen A2, kind of waiting strategy. No, this is not a draw. Black is still winning, but this is not a draw. I lost this position, so pay attention. Rook E7. I'm not really sure why I played Rook E7, just kind of maybe defensive mindset a little bit. Okay, this is a sign that the engine doesn't know what it's doing. Now, hard decision. I misspelled now. Okay, I played H5. What on earth am I doing? I'm playing on the wrong side of the board. Well, actually, it's a clever move because I'm actually not losing. I'm still winning with that move, but it is a kind of a tough practical decision. You are opening up the position where your king is. So he took. I took. Bishop here. Okay, that's a sign that things are not looking that bad yet. I don't really want to take this H pawn. This is going to be trouble. Okay. F5. I gave myself interesting move. Maybe too creative, I wrote. Of course, I should just play A4 and just take a shot at the king. But okay, F5, I'm still winning. But here comes an interesting moment. H5, I doubled, which is logical, right? You want to have pressure on the only open file for my rooks. Queen G2. And here comes human chess. Any human who is playing an engine want to play it safe. You want to get out of this. I think King H7 is just a waste of time. I gave myself question mark. I'm still winning, but it's for the mindset. I'm playing too defensively here. So the point is, you got to go out, guys. All out with A4 and hope for the best. And the key line is after H6. He actually has no threats. You can just take, and take. So this is crushing. Okay, so guys, pay attention, pay attention. We're almost done. Okay, King H7, I gave myself question mark. I'm still winning though. Rook D2, a little bit of a strange defensive move from the engine. I played knight back to D7, trying to maybe put pressure on with Rook E1, or maybe the knight can swing to F6. Rook G1. Okay. Now there is some annoyance. Maybe some Queen G6. Takes, and if he can double the rooks, I don't know, maybe I'll get mated. I mean, there's some ghosts. Plus, I have not much time left. So I played Knight F8, which is too passive. Too passive, guys. Maybe I should have just played Knight F6. But okay, I'm still doing okay. And now I just totally blundered. This is a blunder that I would say cost me the game. I'm still doing okay, but I played Rook F7. Oh, not good. I missed Rook F4. But generally, I want to trade. So at first, it looks like, what's the big deal? You just drop the queen back to E6 or D7. I went to D7. Rook G4, okay. And now I played Rook E5, hoping that, all right, everything is protected. Yet, there is a move that is lights out from a human point of view, especially when one has no time. So how can white play for a win now? All of this was building up to this moment where the engine finally has a chance to shine. Rook G6, Bishop H6, not that spectacular. Roger's got an idea. Okay, good job, Roger. Let's give people some more time. Bishop b2. Not that I'm really afraid of bishop b2. Yes, h6. Yeah. All right. That's the move that I missed. Well, with a heavy heart, I'm basically like, with no time left, I basically threw the game away with g5. And after this, it's unstoppable checkmate. And I just resigned. So good job by Komodo. The only move that keeps me in the game is rook e7, but that's hard. Of course, the engine against engine can defend, but as black against Komodo, there's no chance, even if you're Magnus here. You're just going to lose the game. So, yep, I think this game shows you the difference between humans and engines. I did not make a single mistake, objectively speaking, but my whole strategy from the get-go was absolutely wrong. Basically, entering any kind of opposite castle scenario under attack is really tough against engine. So to summarize the match, I won 4-2, okay, which is good for humans, but it also shows you that you have to use some psychology and you have to understand what type of positions humans are good at and what type of positions engines are good at. And the lessons that I learned is I have to keep the game closed at all costs and trade favorable trades. But any kind of opposite side castling, any kind of like tactical skirmishes are bound to result in negative outcomes. All right. So this is important, guys, to understand how humans play chess, how engines play chess, and the decision making. Right. Even in this game, I mean, I wasn't doing that bad. You saw I could have played a4 on multiple occasions, but the problem is my mindset was wrong. Was defensive mindset, right? I'm a piece up. Hey, I'm just going to defend and convert. But no, you got to be aggressive when it counts. All right. So any other questions about the match? Let's give people another minute or so. So there's still, chances for us humans against these monsters, especially when it comes to knight odds. One thing I should also point out, there's a famous saying, when Bobby Fischer at his prime, I think he said, I can give the top female chess player a knight odds and win the game. Because he was so confident he can beat the top female chess player at that time. And then Tal said, well, Fischer is Fischer, but the knight is a knight. So, I can say Komodo is Komodo, right? But the knight is a knight, meaning that no matter how good the engine is, 3,400, 3,500, 3,600, against a decent human, my rating range is 2,500. If I don't make any blunders, I shouldn't lose to the engine. Oh, yeah, you can definitely beat Magnus knight odds. I'm almost certain. Of course, you got to have a lot of time on the clock, right? So that's kind of the trick. If you have a lot of time and you don't get psyched out, well, he is Magnus, that's true. All right, so with that, I'd like to conclude my lecture today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And now you know how to face these monster engines, especially in the odds time controls.